Hey everyone, I'm Eric Peckham, and this is the Monetizing Media podcast. My whole focus is breaking down business opportunities across media, entertainment, and gaming. I'm joined by a leading entrepreneur, executive, or investor in most episodes to share tactical insights about the strategy of their company, an investment thesis they have, or topics like business models, pricing, and creating loyal fans. My guest today is Adriana Hoppenbrouwer, the co-founder and commercial director at the Fabricant, an Amsterdam-based company that is one of the leaders in a new crop of digital fashion houses. The Fabricant designs 3D virtual clothing to be worn by people's avatars online. Their team has partnered with brands like Puma, Adidas, Buffalo, Atari, Off-White, Rag & Bone, and many more, in addition to releasing their own original designs. Well, Adriana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat today. The Fabricant is at the intersection of several big trends. I want to dig into avatars, AI, gaming, non-fungible tokens. You guys are right at the intersection of several of these. So excited to get your perspective. At a high level, let's start with the question of your vision, right? What does the Fabricant look like as a business in 8 or so years?
Yeah, I think start from where has been driven us up until now. We started in 2018, and we call ourselves a digital fashion house. And back then, there was not a very good understanding of what that was. And if anything, people thought, yeah, right. And the beautiful thing is that right now there is a very good understanding of what that is, because I think the digital space and the understanding of the digital possibilities has grown so much in the last 1 year or two. And we believe that we're going to still be a digital fashion house in 8 years from now. We just feel that the utility of digital fashion is going to be even broader than it is right now. And what I mean by utility is that, as you said, there are quite a few macro trends happening. And when we start the company, we said we are starting the company for a future that is going to materialize in 10 years from now in a mass way. And we strongly believe that at one stage, our realities are going to be augmented, and our fashion wardrobe, we have a high percentage of augmented dresses and fashion. And that belief comes from two things, really. The fact that right now, from an average wardrobe, only 30% of the wardrobe is used, and 70% was either used once or never, right? So, which is quite interesting. So we feel that 70% will be digital very soon, and you're going to have a very limited wardrobe.
That breakdown sounds accurate for me. Maybe during quarantine, it's more like 10% that gets worn.
Exactly. I think the quarantine is even less. But the other thing that is maybe more philosophical, but certainly more exciting, is the fact that we buy fashion for two reasons, right? We buy to protect our bodies, which is a very functional reason. But the reason why we truly buy fashion is to express our identities and to express ourselves. And why do we want to express ourselves? Because we want to create tribes, and we want to belong, and we want to create social networks of lookalikes. And when we look at it in 2018 with that philosophy, we said, but hang on, we are already expressing ourselves, creating social networks, creating belonging in the digital space. Why does fashion needs to be physical to exist, right? If most of the time we're self-expression is actually not in the physical space. So that was like the beginning of the Fabricant with that philosophy, and it's the philosophy that is still valid and is only gonna get bigger and broader, to a point that we believe that digital fashion is going to be more valuable as an industry than physical fashion.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to get into more details on the product, but I guess to give us a sense as we go forward, as a fashion house, obviously the Fabricant has a very particular style or brand identity that it's going for. What is your distinct style that will differentiate the digital clothing you guys create?
Yeah, I think it's one is a style, and I could say we have the Fabricant brand and has a very clear design ethos, which are anchored with inspired Asian and ancient cultures, and also very much what we're calling degendered. So blurring genders, but also blurring the limits of physicality. So that is like the Fabricant label. But I think what distinguishes ourselves is that we are more than just our label. We see ourselves as a player in the ecosystem, and we believe that this ecosystem that has been created, where the blockchain movement is a good representation, is a decentralized cooperative movement, whereby we believe that digital fashion will exist in a highly collaborative space. And we have been doing that. We have been walking the talk for already quite some time, but most recently we came out with quite a few iterations of that when we had last year we partnered with Atari, the gaming brand, and we created a digital only collection, the Fabricant Atari, and we sold it in blockchain. And you could use that collection in a game, or you could dress your picture with that. In January, we launched a collaboration with Buffalo London, the shoe, whereby you bought a digital only shoe and you could dress your picture with it, right? So we believe that is the beauty of the day of today. Is collaboration is quite core to what we believe in, is core to what we operate, and can be collaboration with brands, can be collaboration with creators. I think that is the space we would like to nurture: fashion that is more collaborative, more democratic, more sustainable, and more creative.
Yeah. And so, to get into the, I guess, technical understanding here, if I'm buying a piece of digital clothing from the fabricant, what exactly am I receiving? Is this a kind of a file with a 3D rendering of an item, and I can use it however I want? Are there restrictions on how I use it?
Yeah. Right now, actually, it depends where you buy it and who you are. I would say, is and that is again that's the beautiful thing about the media. There is so much utility that can be created, and right now there are really four types of utilities. One, you are a creator. You actually create fashion, or you are very
Hmm.
interested in creating digital fashion. You can buy our files as a white canvas for your own creativity, right?
Hmm.
So you kind of, as if you would buy patterns from old-fashioned pattern books. You can see our files as that if you're creative. Um, then the second use case is you just love to express yourself in social media, and you can buy our items to dress your picture or to create an AR layer that you actually create content with. That's the second use case, right? And then in that case, you are digital fashionista, as we call them. You can be a gamer, and you can buy it for a game or in a game. So we have a few of our items in Sansar now, which is a virtual space. The collaboration we did with Atari took it into the gaming space, and we believe that is that's going to grow more and more as there are more and more open gamings being generated, or at least the understanding of the ability and the interest to purchase assets that you can take with you, and that there is validity and value beyond just the one game. So I think that's the third use case, and the fourth use case is the collectibles one, right? Is where NFT right now is really hot, but we believe that NFT is actually really interesting, but blockchain it will be just the underpinning of everything. So we believe that right now, blockchain is very much associated with NFTs and collectibles. But we actually believe that blockchain is just the enabling technology for digital fashion to exist and be able to have so many use cases and value.
Yeah. And for your team, what software are you using to create digital clothing? Is this Clo, which I think is popular for designs broadly in the fashion industry, or something else?
Yeah, our designers love Clo, so we use Clo 3D. That's very much like our tool. But we also use other visual effects tools depending on again the utility and the project. So we can be using Cinema 4D. We can there are quite a few that we play with. Um, on the fashion development, Chloe is our main tool.
Gotcha. And in terms of how I would actually wear a piece of clothing that I've bought, maybe let's leave the use case of kind of within games through partnerships aside. If I, just want a photo of myself to appear with that item on it, or an avatar somewhere else, what do I have to do to get the piece of clothing on me. Is there a simple way for me to do that if I'm non-technical, or does it require some technical skills around photo editing?
No, absolutely. I think like, well, if you want to edit your photo, that be my guest is also nice. But no, absolutely. So on the Buffalo, for example, Buffalo London, we partner with DressX, which is one of our partners, and they are a marketplace that they dress pictures with digital items, and it's super cool
Oh,
because
interesting.
they, I think they're very much in the beginning of what will be a very common use case as technology gets better, and they do it pretty much manually right now. So
Hmm.
it's it's true photo craftsmanship, you could say. But you can also use it as an AR layer, which is also like another tool that we are playing with, and it can have really nice results as well.
Yeah, and in a platform partnership or gaming partnership like you have with Atari, I imagine um, they have a tool they've built that takes the fabricant's item of clothing and turns it into a digital asset within their games.
Yeah, so there are a few ways to go about it. One way is the way we did with Atari, and it was a collaboration with Atari, with Engine, and with Ebola, which is also a game. And basically we create the items and you bought them in Engine, which is a crypto marketplace, as an
Mhm.
NFT, and you put them in your wallet, and then you open your wallet in a game, in a crypto game, right? So that is how the user did the work. Let's put it this way, and that's how it was transportable. It's like, it's also really cool to visualize that you actually have your clothes in your little wallet, your little suitcase, and
Yeah,
you open somewhere else in another space, right?
yeah. Digital clothing obviously frees you from a lot of the constraints of physical fashion design and materials. I'm interested, what are the features you found popular in creating digital clothing that couldn't exist in physical fashion?
Yeah, I think you nailed in the sense of there are no boundaries of physicality, right? Um, it kind of defies the preconceptions of the fashion industry in many ways. Gender, size, shape. But what we love is just the ability to create anything. Like the buffalo shoe was a shoe on flames. You would never have a shoe on flames in reality, right? Uh,
Hopefully not.
just just to give an example. No. But the other, so that is like more, materials, and indeed I can wear water as a dress. It's a material that doesn't exist in physicality, right? But I can also, fashion show in 3D. You don't need to walk a catwalk because why would you, right? You can swim in the air, or you can do whatever you want. So I
Yeah.
think that there is that aspect, that just like the imagination is your limitation. The other aspect that we really like is the ability to collaborate. And one of the platforms that we are super excited about is async art, where actually you can collaborate with artists and each artist owns a layer of the product. And how cool is that, right? That you can actually co-create, and not only co-create with different artists, but actually the piece can evolve over time. So if you bought a piece of clothes that was co-created by four different people, and each of them has a piece and a layer, and tomorrow they decide to change the color of their layer, the piece you bought will change color, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like it's super dynamic, but you can also make things that grow. So you can make things that disappear. Like you can buy
yeah.
a dress that has a mushroom effect and it's going to start molding and decay, right?
Yeah.
Or not.
Or imagine
Uh,
something that responds to its environment in some way.
exactly, responds to its environment or transforms itself. Um, so I think, like, when again, we one of the collections we did, which was super interesting, we used artificial intelligence, and our designer used a piece of code to map several pictures of fashion shows, and that AI gave an output of something super crazy, which was her inspiration to
Hmm.
develop her collection, right? So that's another angle that kind of just sparks creativity in new directions that are not the common ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many items of digital clothing is the Fabricant making? Is this a relatively small number of kind of expensive or kind of highly promoted items, or are you guys um, creating new designs every day that are going onto a marketplace?
Yeah, so we create designs every day pretty much, but we do. I think we position ourselves as true craftsmanship. So is like we call ourselves haute couture to play a bit with haute couture, but it's haute couture. But yeah, there is a lot of craftsmanship that comes in, and it can take weeks to create the item. But we drop every week an item, and actually our ambition is to drop more often.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we start doing, which is actually super fun, is every Friday we have a Twitch stream, and we design live. Our designers are design live, and we're designing what we're going to drop. And the reason we are doing it is because we really want to promote the digital fashion as a new craft, and we want to have a new community emerging of digital fashion designers, because that is what the industry will need, right? I think we're
Yeah.
going to have an explosion of demand faster than explosion of supply,
Hmm.
because the craft is not yet to its full potential, right? Fashion schools are still very traditional. The fashion market is still very traditional. They need to transit very quickly to this new digital space, because the demand is gonna accelerate tremendously.
Yeah. In terms of that demand expanding, one of the things that I think about here is a barrier is, at least in the use case of games, which is the biggest industry right now where people do buy digital clothing, right? All sorts of in-game purchases, skims, etc. Is pretty much all games are closed platforms, right? They don't allow outside assets to be imported in and used as in-game items. Is that something you think is going to change in the next few years, where they open up more, or there's some sort of interoperable standard, or um, is that less important in your vision of how
Yeah.
digital clothing
So,
expands?
so I think if you look at triple A, they are closed, but actually if you look at numbers of games, they are quite. There's a high percent that is open, right? The indie games, and there are marketplaces that actually sell assets for games already. Roblox is a great example that is actually a very community-driven gaming and development. And I think the Roblox model is certainly the one that's going to prevail, where actually there are people that are creating, there are people that are playing, and there are people that are giving tools for the creators to create. And I think because they're paving the way for the rest big time with their success as well. Also because the generations of today, and I have that often that I talk about it because I find it fascinating. But I think we are in a consuming kind of a post-consumerism generation. When you look at Gen Zers and young millennials, they don't want to consume anymore. They want to create, right? It's the TikTok generation. Why TikTok is so popular? Because they're giving you tools to be creative, and some of those creators monetize their creativity. And I think the models that are going to remain are models that allow that are brands, environments that gives tools for people to create, to be part of the economy. And some people will want to monetize that, and some will just want to be part of it as an active player, observer. And I think that will get into the game industry as well. So that's one. It's already getting. The other thing that I think is very promising is every time I hear the CEO of Epic talking about the metaverse, and Epic being is still, with Fortnite, a very good example of a very, very close ecosystem, right? But they
Yeah.
just opened and opened that creators community where people can start actually building in Fortnite. So they're starting to open because they see they can't keep it closed anymore. And the vision is an open metaverse, right? So I think that will happen. Like, is that said, it's easier said than done. That one piece of clothes I can put in Fortnite and I can put in League of Legends. That's not the case, because the definition is completely different. The storytelling is completely different, right? So the a mobile game has a very different file optimization than a console game. So all of that is still to happen.
Yeah.
and a lot will be manual in the very beginning, but it will happen.
Yeah.
We're pretty convinced about it.
Yeah. I'm curious just to better understand the business of the Fabricant right now. Is most of your business from sales of items to consumers, or is it from brands partnering with you and kind of paying because they want to establish a presence in digital fashion, from a promotional standpoint?
Yeah, yeah. So we have two business models indeed. Like most of our revenue comes from brands who are paying to actually embrace the 3D space
Mhm.
in several forms. We call it like the service house. It can be that we digitalize existing assets for digital showrooms, for example, because we do photoreal creations. So that is like on the service house business model, and we feel that it's important to take the industry by the hand, because at the moment that they start embracing and creating digital assets, and that's what we have been talking since 2018. The moment that you create a digital asset, why do you stop in your showroom? Take it further. Make it have life beyond the physicality. And now they're starting to understand, and it's super exciting to see how many brands that we worked with in again in a very good use case for them, digitalize the supply chain. Now it's saying like, oh, those clothes that you did to me, can I put it in a game? Can I do this? Can I do that? Well, tell me about that NFT thing. And it's a journey, and I think it's super exciting that the industry is starting to open up for that. Right, Gucci just dropped a digital only shoe, which is super cool. um, so I think that is just like, again, stages on the journey. Right now, that is like most of our revenue is collaborations with brands, is servicing brands. But we believe that the biggest growth potential is on the digital only assets. And we start to
Mhm.
seeing those revenues, and not only the revenues, but the collaborations, the interest actually raising by the day.
Yeah. In terms of creating scarcity around the clothing items um, you create, is that important to you in the business right now, or do some of these brands you're working with not want that? They want there to be kind of infinite supply of the items of clothing they've created with you out there.
Yeah, it's a very good question. We have a lot of philosophical discussions about it recently. We do believe that scarcity generates value at the
Mhm.
current moment in time. And I think the next layer that will generate value is the ability to create and co-create,
Yeah.
right? And that is where we're having a lot of philosophical discussions, because maybe you have, let's call it, white canvas products that are evergreen, and the value is that they are open for you to create and change colors, change patterns, change textures, do crazy stuff. Um, but there are items that are one of a kind, of hundred of a kind, or time bound. You can have them within a week, but afterwards it disappears,
Yeah.
right? And the cool thing is that we're observing and being part of a lot of these models in the NFT marketplaces, which still, you know, to a large extent, sold as art, but it's starting step by step to transforming beyond collectibles and having also utility, as I mentioned, like the engine is a good example. And it's super interesting to see all the business models that are emerging and which ones are actually working, which ones are not working, and how they are going to then materialize in the space that we are pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you price a piece of digital clothing? Obviously, it doesn't have the material costs and kind of distribution costs, et cetera, of physical clothing. Is this, I don't, do you benchmark it around the price of designer clothing in the real world, or how do you come up with the different prices for different
Yeah.
items?
So we had quite a lot of research done on this one, and again, depends on the utility. I would say it's not a simple answer, um, because the utility, like say if you buy an item that you have four different ways to wear, there is more value to that. Equally, if you buy an item that is one of a kind, there is more value to that. And I think the stage that we are, it is pretty much, we actually, what we're playing the most is let the buyer decide, right? There is what people under appreciate and overlook is that while there is no distribution production cost, the cost of design and the effort is the same. Our
Mhm.
designers have developed concepts, they sketch stuff all in 3D, and they can put a lot of hours developing those items. You know, so I would say the value of creativity and design is the same as a physical item.
Yeah.
The cost of going to the consumer are indeed much less. And therefore, what we tell the fashion industry, for those that are kind of a bit more advanced in their thought, is look how fantastic this new business model is for you. It's more profitable, it is more sustainable, and it's more engaging, right? What are you
Yeah.
expecting? Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for?
Yeah. And when you say let the consumers decide the price, is that an auction model often
Yeah,
that
very,
would
very much
advise?
an auction model is the ones that we have been trying most recently, and it's fascinating because again we are learning, as I think everybody's learning in this space. I think when you are in a one setting, and because we look at all the different use cases, like in a gaming, kids are prepared to pay 20 euros for Fortnite unique limited edition skin, right? Like 20,
Yeah.
20 euros. That's significant. That's actually more or pretty much in line with the average price of physical apparel in the world. The average price is $20.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of pretty shocking. It's only for the duration of a game.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying the the NFT space is shaping it very differently, because you start seeing the collectors. It's kind of, we all believe it's inflated, but regardless of being inflated, the fact that as of suddenly you can trade it, there is life after buying, right? You can again have different utility, increase and the viscosity, increase the value model.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think to your point around paying 20 euros for a Fortnite skin, right? It's tradable in a way that obviously you can trade. There's secondhand marketplaces for physical clothes, but they're at a dramatic discount, right? And we view them as kind of dirty or used in a bad sense, which I don't think that psychology carries over to digital clothing.
No, it's quite the opposite, right? So it's like it's, it's changing hands and getting more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
super interesting.
I'm curious as far as um, bringing digital clothing to different games, partnering with different gaming companies. Are you doing any design of new items within certain games in the sense of games where you can't import assets from elsewhere, like that you've created in Clo 3D? Um, say Animal Crossing, right? Animal Crossing has tools within it for any player to
Mhm.
design their own clothing items and sell them to
Yeah.
other players. Are you doing any designs within the realm of a game like that?
Not as the Animal Crossing one, because they have their own blocks. We are in conversations with a few potential partnerships, which would still be our designs, but would need require adaptation to their language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. So let's talk about NFTs a little more. Very hyped and in the news and discussion at the moment. Um, how how central are non-fungible tokens to the business you're trying to create? Is this a key part of having the scarcity and the value around digital clothes, or it's it's one piece of kind of the ecosystem that's out there, but it's not actually necessary for what you're trying to
Mhm.
do?
If you would have asked me 1 year ago, I would say it is one piece, but probably, we're going to think about it later. Today, we believe it's fundamental, and it's fundamental to the digital fashion ecosystem, not because of the hype, but because of what I said is the backbone of the ability to generate utility and to generate tradability.
Yeah.
Um, and therefore, we see it as a backbone technology rather than
Yeah.
NFT marketplace.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of the challenges that are still there for how you're trying to use it. Obviously, you have um, this kind of barrier around high gas prices. It can cost a lot of money just to mint a new NFT. There's a whole conversation debate around the ecological impact of anything done on blockchain. Um, what are the barriers that you'd like to see addressed to make NFTs more feasible at a mass scale with digital clothing?
Yeah, I think the most important one is the sustainability one for us, and and is one that actually we had to pause and breathe and say, do we want to be in this business? Because
Mhm.
sustainability has been and is so important for us, and it requires be well informed. We are creative technologists, and we believe that we should be using technology to enable this industry to flourish. Um, and But equally, we should be choosing the most sustainable options. So now we're running a big research to actually inform ourselves what's the most sustainable option,
Mhm.
and we would only partner with the most sustainable. Building our own tech would be with the most sustainable blockchain option out there. So I think that is going to be super important as it
Yeah.
grows. But equally, my answer to that as well, and it is a very nascent technology, and every nascent technology is not perfect. It just have to always have critical people to keep driving the agenda to perfect it. And we have been a lot in Clubhouse talks, and it's super inspiring to see how the crypto community of artists, buyers actually want it to be sustainable.
Mhm.
If anything, it doesn't meet the requirements of the community to have something that's polluting, right? So
Yeah.
intrinsically, everybody wants to make it sustainable. So there is enough pressure for the yeah, I would say for the marketplace and the blockchain providers to actually change their standards to make it more sustainable.
Yeah. I guess my last question here, I'm just thinking about the timeline of market adoption here and more people buying digital clothing. Do you see a clear um, waterfall, perhaps, or rollout in terms of the different digital mediums where digital clothing becomes popular first? Like, there's photos within social apps, there's within games, within VR, in the future in AR overlays of people. Um,
Yeah,
I'm curious in terms of these different use cases or markets for digital clothing, if you see certain ones being the core focus now and that's shifting later.
yeah. So also very good question. So I would answer that the value of digital clothes is understood by people that are in the digital space and are already buying items in the digital space, right? So who are they right now? I call them the metaverse citizens because I think gamers
Mhm.
is too stereotypy. But they are gamers. They're people that actually they understand the value of digital assets and they curate their personality in those games, right? And they buy stuff to create their characters. Uh, but gamer is it reflects a very different persona, I think, in people's mind than what actual that persona is the day of today. And that's why I like to talk more about metaverse citizens because gamer is not the right definition. And if anything, it's not about game anymore. It's about 3D universe. Like I don't know if you have been to Decentraland. It's a bit weird, but it's actually super fun at the same time. And people are having meetups in Decentraland, and you have a wardrobe, and you can buy clothes to be dressed for the meetups, right?
Mhm.
This to me, like is beyond just the competitive element of gaming. It's like just 3D social spaces or 3D experiences, which are emerging, where players give value to the way that they show up. And I think these are the early adopters, and they are not a small niche, right? It's quite sizable. Um, and then I think the next one will be what we call the more digital fashionistas, which is, indeed very social active, creating content like the TikTok generation. And the AR layer for fashion has its limitations because the body tracking with movement has its limitations, and clothing, what they call cloth simulation, which the movement of the clothes has its limitations, but it's going to get there very soon. We're involved in all this research as well, and it's not take long before it starts getting better and better. And I think it's going to be very widely adopted, just like filters for the face are. But it's the question there is how you're going to monetize it.
Yeah.
Because this is distributed by social media platforms that their business model is very different, right? So I think that is what's going to be the challenge when it gets to that layer. But I think it's going to get pretty soon. I think both are going to be very feasible, and starting with people that already understand, to then people kind of, I tend to say people that understand the value of assets understand less the value of fashion to people that understand the value of fashion, less about the value of digital assets.
Well, Adriana, thanks so much for joining today and sharing this with us.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it made sense.
Yes. No, it's exciting. We're very much just in the early stages.
Yeah, but it's going to go very fast. Very fast, Eric. Watch this space.
Thanks for listening to the Monetizing Media podcast. You can join my Monetizing Media newsletter and find other resources like a database of investors who focus on media and entertainment startups at monetizingmedia.com.